The day I started my new job at Google, everything felt surreal. Walking through the glass doors of the company's headquarters in Mountain View, California, it was hard to believe I had come so far. The buzz of excitement in the air, the sleek modern architecture, everything screamed success. And there I was, standing at the threshold of a dream I had worked so hard for. But the thing is, as much as this was my achievement, I couldn't help but think about Emily. I could still hear her voice in my head from years ago, when we were just two kids dreaming of the future. Remember the late nights we'd spend talking about what we wanted from life. It was always clear to me that Emily was destined for greatness. Her ambition was contagious, and I knew from the start that nothing would stand in her way. "Jack," she'd said one evening as we sat on the porch of my parents' house in San Francisco, the sunset painting the sky with orange and pink hues, "I want to be someone important. I want to do something that matters." I had always admired her for that. Her drive, her fire, was intoxicating. She wasn't like the others. She wasn't content with just getting by. She wanted to conquer the world.
Us.
And I wanted to be there to support her every step of the way. I always believed in her, even when she wasn't sure of herself. We'd built our lives around these dreams. She pushed me to apply to Google, encouraged me to aim higher, and told me time and time again that I had it in me to make a real impact. At the time, it was just a dream for both of us. But when I finally received the offer from Google, I thought back to those moments. I thought about how we had imagined this day together. "Emily, we're doing it," I said to her when I called her the night I got the job offer. She was so happy for me, more than I thought possible. "You've always said you wanted to make a mark. This is just the beginning, right?"
Absolutely,
she'd said, her voice full of excitement.
Out.
"We're going to make it, Jack. You'll see." It was moments like that that made me believe we were unstoppable. She was always so confident about the future, and I couldn't help but follow her lead. Together, we were supposed to have everything: success, love, happiness. It felt like we were invincible. But now, as I sat in the sleek conference room of Google, staring at my new colleagues and absorbing the thrill of this moment, a part of me couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Maybe it was just the nerves settling in, or maybe I was just tired from all the excitement. But no matter how much I tried to focus on the future, my mind kept drifting back to Emily. Things had been different lately. Emily had been distant. Not in a harsh way, but in a way that made me feel like I was losing her bit by bit. I tried not to think too much of it, telling myself that she was just focused on her career, as she always had been. But something about it felt off. She had changed, or maybe I had. I tried to ignore the unease gnawing at me as I worked through my first day. But when I got home that night, I picked up the phone and called her. "Hey, Em," I said, my voice cracking just a little. "I made it. My first day. It's crazy here. You'd love it." "I'm so proud of you, Jack," she said, her voice warm but strained. "I knew you'd make it." The conversation drifted into the usual small talk, but there was something in her tone that didn't sit right with me.
Ow.
It wasn't the usual enthusiasm. There was no excitement in her voice when she asked about my day, and I couldn't help but feel like we were both playing a part in some script we had written long ago. I knew she was busy. I knew how hard she worked. But I couldn't shake the thought that I was losing her. That the future we had imagined together was slipping away without either of us even realizing it. "Maybe we can catch up soon," I asked, trying to keep the hope alive in my voice. "Sure," she replied, a little too quickly. "We'll talk later." And that was it. The conversation ended without the usual warmth, without the plans for the future that we used to make. It felt like a door had quietly closed between us, and I was too afraid to push it open again. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling of my new apartment in San Jose, the weight of everything started to sink in. I had everything I had ever wanted: my dream job at Google, a future that seemed limitless. And yet something was missing. I didn't know it yet, but that was the last night I would ever feel like I had everything. Because something was about to change, something I couldn't control. Something that would shatter everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and ambition. It would all begin with a single truth. Emily wasn't the person I thought she was. I should have known something was wrong. I started noticing the signs almost immediately, but I kept brushing them off, convincing myself it was just the pressure of her career. Emily had always been ambitious. I knew that. She'd always put everything she had into her work, and I admired her for it. but lately she'd been distant more so than usual. I would call her after work expecting the familiar excitement in her voice, but it wasn't there. Her answers were short, her tone flat. Sometimes I'd get her voicemail, or worse, she'd pick up, only to say she was busy and had to call me back. I thought it was just stress. She'd been working long hours at her new project, something big at the tech firm she worked for, and I figured that was the reason. But as the days passed, I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in my stomach. Emily wasn't the same. One afternoon, while grabbing coffee in the Google cafeteria, I ran into Alex, a colleague from the product development team. He looked at me with that sly grin he always wore when he had gossip to share. "Hey Jack, you know Emily, right?" Alex asked, his voice casual but his eyes twinkling with something else. "Yeah, of course. Why?" I replied, trying to hide the growing tension in my chest. "Well, I saw her the other day. With Thompson." David Thompson. My stomach dropped. David Thompson was my boss, the man I admired and looked up to as a mentor. He had this commanding presence, this reputation for being cold, but brilliant. I'd been working under him for a few months, and everything seemed fine. But hearing his name on Alex's lips like that made me feel uneasy. "She was with him?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady even though it felt like the floor had just shifted beneath me. "Yeah, they were at that new restaurant in Palo Alto. Seemed pretty." Cozy, Alex shrugged, clearly not sensing the storm brewing inside me. Cozy. The word hung in the air like a threat. It wasn't the kind of thing I expected to hear about Emily. Sure, she'd been distant, but Emily was loyal, wasn't she? She always said she believed in building something strong and lasting. She'd always claimed that we were building something together. "I didn't know they were close," I said, forcing a smile. But my mind was racing, replaying every moment with Emily, every little detail that now seemed so suspicious. I guess it's more than just work stuff, huh?" Alex added with a laugh, and I could tell he wasn't aware of the weight his words carried. "Right, more than work stuff," I echoed. But I didn't feel right saying it. My head was spinning. After Alex walked away, I stood there for a long moment, staring down at my coffee. I couldn't stop the images from flooding my mind. Emily with David Thompson. She'd always been so proud of me, so proud of us. She'd supported me when I joined Google, telling me how lucky she was to have someone so driven. How she loved that I was building a future we could both be proud of. But now, hearing about her with him, I couldn't help but feel a crushing sense of betrayal. I tried to call her that evening, my phone buzzing in my hand, but again, no answer. Voicemail. I left a message, trying to sound casual like nothing was wrong. "Hey, just wanted to check in. Call me when you get a chance." But deep down, I knew something had changed. I didn't know how or why, but I could feel it. Later that night, I sat in front of my laptop, scrolling through my emails, trying to focus. But all I could think about was the picture Alex had painted, the idea of Emily and David, laughing over drinks, maybe even sharing something more than just professional conversation. I pushed the thought away, telling myself I was overthinking it. There had to be some explanation, some innocent reason for them to be together. But the more I thought about it, the more the pieces didn't fit. Emily hadn't been herself lately. I hadn't seen her excited about anything we were doing together for weeks now. She seemed to be pushing me away. And then there was the thing I couldn't shake, the coldness in her voice when I called her. The briefness of her responses, the way she'd pull away whenever I tried to get closer. I couldn't stop myself from dialing her number again. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then her voicemail kicked in. "Hey, it's Emily. I can't come to the phone right now. Leave a message." I hung up, frustration bubbling inside me. I was angry, confused, and hurt, but I didn't know what to do with any of those emotions. I should have confronted her right then and there, but a part of me couldn't bring myself to do it. What if I was wrong? What if I was just being paranoid? But deep down, I knew I wasn't. I could feel it in my gut. Something was going on. And it wasn't just the pressures of her job. That night, I lay in bed wide awake, staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from Emily. "Sorry, Jack. I've been really busy. Call you tomorrow." I stared at the words, my heart heavy. I didn't know how much longer I could keep pretending everything was fine when it felt like it was falling apart. The betrayal had begun. I just didn't know how deep it ran yet. I had been trying to ignore the sinking feeling in my chest, convincing myself that everything was just my overactive imagination. But deep down, I knew the truth was coming. It had been days since I first heard Alex's words. She was with him, cozy in Palo Alto. And every time I saw Emily's name pop up on my phone, my stomach twisted. That evening, when I finally decided to confront her, I wasn't sure what I'd say, but I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I couldn't keep ignoring what was right in front of me. "Emily, we need to talk," I said, when she finally picked up my call. Her voice was distant, like she had been expecting this. "About what, Jack? About you and David?" I heard her pause. For a moment I thought she might deny it, but when she spoke again, there was no surprise, no apologies, as cold resignation. "What about us?" she asked, her voice flat. I clenched my fist, feeling the anger bubble up. "I know you've been seeing him, Emily. Don't lie to me." Silence. Then a deep sigh. "What do you think?" "Then what is it?" I demanded, my voice rising. "What's going on, Emily? I thought you loved me. I thought we had something real, but all along you've been with him." There was a long pause before she spoke again. Her words cut through me like a knife. "Jack, I didn't want to hurt you, but I can't keep pretending. David is. He's my future." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Your future? You're choosing him over me?" She didn't even try to defend herself. "Yes, Jack, I am." "You're a good guy, but I need more. I need stability, security. I need someone who can give me what I've always wanted." The world around me seemed to tilt. I had given up everything for her. My career, my time, my dreams, all for Emily. She had always been the one person I'd trusted completely, but now I felt like an idiot. "You're choosing him for money, for power," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "That's all this is, isn't it?" Emily's voice softened, almost pitying. "It's not just about money, Jack. It's about being realistic. I can't keep living in some fantasy world where love is enough. I need more. And David, he has what I need." My heart shattered as I realized the truth. All the plans, all the dreams we'd shared, they didn't matter to her. It was all about what she could get. She didn't care about me the way I had cared about her. "So that's it then?" I asked, my voice breaking. "You're just throwing everything away? Everything we built? Everything we had?" "Yes, Jack," she said, her tone final. "I am." The words rang in my ears, echoing with finality. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How had it come to this? How had the woman I loved, the woman I had given everything for, turned into someone so cold, so selfish? I felt sick. My whole body trembled with anger and disbelief, but it was all mixed with this gut-wrenching pain. I had been the one to sacrifice, the one who supported her every step of the way, and yet it wasn't enough. "You don't even care, do you?" I asked quietly, feeling the tears threaten to spill. "I loved you, Emily. I gave you everything, and you—" But she interrupted me, her voice colder than I had ever heard it. "I'm doing what's best for me, Jack. This isn't about you. It's about my future. You need to understand that." I wanted to scream, to tell her how much she had hurt me, but the words wouldn't come. I felt hollow inside, like the air had been sucked out of the room. All I could hear was her voice, the one I had once loved so much, telling me that everything we had wasn't worth it to her. "Goodbye, Jack," she said, and before I could say anything else, the line went dead. I stared at the phone, my hand shaking as I held it to my ear. I had hoped no. I had trusted that there was some explanation, some reason for all of this, but there was no excuse. No redemption. She had chosen him. There was nothing. I slammed my phone down onto the table, the anger building inside me, hotter and fiercer than anything I had ever felt before. I wanted to burn everything to the ground, to make her regret this decision, to make her see the damage she had done. But deep down, I knew that no matter what I did, it wouldn't change anything. She had made her choice, and I had lost her. The world seemed to blur around me as I sank into the couch, my head in my hands. I didn't know who to trust anymore. I didn't know if I could ever love again.
Oh!
All I knew was that my heart had been shattered into 1,000 pieces, and there was nothing I could do to fix it. I could barely sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, all I saw was Emily, her face, her voice, and that final, heartless goodbye. "I'm doing what's best for me, Jack." Those words echoed in my head over and over again. The more I thought about them, the more the anger grew. I had never felt betrayal like this before. The woman I loved, the woman I had given everything for, had chosen him, David Thompson, my boss. It was too much to accept, too much to process. She didn't just break my heart, she broke everything I had worked for. All the plans we had made, all the dreams we'd shared, shattered in one cold, calculated decision. I should have walked away, I knew that. Should have packed my bags, left Google, and rebuilt my life. But something inside me wouldn't let me. I had to make them pay. I had to make her see the mistake she made. The next few days felt like a blur. I kept to myself at work, hiding behind the facade of a successful, calm professional. When all I could think about was how I was going to destroy the life of the man who had taken everything from me. Late one night, after everyone had gone home, I sat in front of my computer, the glow of the screen, the only light in the dark office. I had spent the past few days digging into David's life, his business dealings, his personal finances, anything I could find that might expose him. The deeper I dug, the more I uncovered. There were whispers about shady deals, hidden financial transactions, and connections to companies that had questionable reputations. I leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding as I realized how far I could take this. I could destroy him. I had everything I needed, his secrets, his lies, the perfect ammunition to ruin him at Google. And Emily? She would be collateral damage. She would have to live with the consequences of choosing him over me. The thought sent a rush of adrenaline through me, but at the same time, a cold wave of doubt washed over me. Was this really the person I wanted to be? Was I willing to sacrifice my integrity for the sake of revenge? The man I had been strong, loyal, and determined was slipping away, replaced by someone else. Someone consumed by anger. Is this really worth it? I muttered to myself, staring at the screen. I was so lost in thought that I didn't hear the soft click of the door opening. Hey, man. Maya's voice broke through my haze, pulling me back to reality. I jumped, startled, and quickly minimized the window with David's name on it. She walked into the office with her usual easy smile, but when she saw the look on my face, her expression immediately shifted to concern. You okay? She asked, sitting down on the edge of the desk. Yeah, just thinking. Maya raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying my answer. About what? You've been quiet lately. Like, quieter than usual? I hesitated, not sure how to explain the mess swirling inside my head. It's just this whole thing with Emily and David. It's messed up, Maya. I don't know what to do. She leaned forward, her voice soft but firm. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to be the guy who seeks revenge. It's not worth it. Trust me. I don't know what else to do, I said, my voice tight. They took everything from me. My trust, my love, my future. How am I supposed to just move on from that? Not strong enough. Maya's eyes softened, and she placed a hand on my arm. I get it. I really do. But trust me, going down this path, it won't make you feel better. It'll just make things worse. You'll lose yourself in it, Jack. You'll become someone you don't even recognize. Her words hit harder than I expected. I had been so consumed by the desire for revenge that I hadn't considered what it would do to me. What would I become if I let this anger control me? Would I still be the man I wanted to be, or would I become a monster, just like the people who had hurt me? I don't know if I can just let it go, I said, my voice breaking. Maya was silent for a moment, then she said, You don't have to let it go right now. But don't make any decisions in the heat of the moment. You're hurt, Jack. You need time to heal, to think about what you really want. You're stronger than this, but you have to take control, not revenge. Control over your own life. Her words struck me deep. For the first time since everything had fallen apart, I realized she was right. I was letting my pain guide me, pushing me toward something I knew wasn't right. It wasn't about them anymore, it was about me. It was about finding a way to move on, to rebuild. I'll think about it, I said quietly, meeting her gaze. Maya smiled, but it was soft, almost relieved. Good, take your time, and just remember, I'm here for you. As she left, I sat back in my chair, the weight of her words sinking in. I had a choice. I could destroy David and Emily, tear their lives apart, or I could walk away, rebuild, and find a better path. But as I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the mouse, ready to send the documents to my anonymous source, I couldn't shake the thought that once I took that step, there would be no going back. I had to decide who I wanted to be. I couldn't stop myself. Every time I tried to put it out of my mind, it came rushing back, stronger than before. David, Emily, the betrayal, I couldn't let them get away with it. Not after everything I had given up, everything I had sacrificed for her, for them. It had been a few days since my conversation with Maya, and as much as her words had hit me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to do something. I couldn't just walk away from this. Not yet. I needed justice. I needed to make them feel what I was feeling. Jack, are you sure about this? Maya's voice cut through the fog of my thoughts. I hadn't even realized she had come into the office. I looked up from the computer screen, my fingers still hovering over the keyboard. Yeah, I said, trying to sound confident. I'm sure. This is the only way I'll get the closure I need. She stood across from me, arms crossed, her eyes narrowed in concern. You think this will fix everything? You think bringing him down will make you feel better? I paused, the weight of her question settling in. I don't know if it'll fix everything, I admitted, my voice softening. But it'll make me feel like I've taken control. It's like I'm not just some victim in all this. Maya sighed, stepping closer to the desk. I get it. I do. But Jack, revenge won't bring you peace. It'll just make you angry. It'll make you become someone you're not. This is him winning, turning you into someone who's obsessed with revenge. Is that really who you want to be? Her words hit harder than I expected. I opened my mouth to argue, but the words stuck in my throat. She was right. I knew she was right. But the thought of David sitting pretty, unaffected by anything, while I was left with nothing, it made my blood boil. I don't have a choice, Maya, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I have to do something. Maya reached across the desk, placing her hand on mine. You don't have to. You don't have to destroy yourself in the process, Jack. I pulled my hand away, shaking my head. I don't know how to move on without doing this. Maya didn't speak for a long moment. Then, with a resigned sigh, she said, If you go through with this, just promise me you'll think about the consequences. Promise me you'll think about what kind of man you want to be at the end of all this. I stared at her, her eyes filled with concern, but also a deep understanding. I will, I said, though I wasn't sure if I meant it. The next few hours passed in a blur. I spent my time going through David's emails, his past deals, anything I could find that might connect him to illegal activity or shady business dealings. Google had access to everything, and I had the knowledge to dig deep. It wasn't long before I found something. A thread of emails between David and a third-party contractor that suggested a lucrative kickback deal for inside information. The emails were carefully hidden, but I knew where to look. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I downloaded the documents, my fingers trembling with a mix of excitement and dread. This was it. This was the thing that could ruin him. But even as I stared at the evidence on the screen, I couldn't help but feel sick. Was this really worth it? Was bringing David down worth losing myself in the process? The faces of Emily and David flashed in my mind, and for a second I thought about walking away. But I couldn't. I wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. Just as I was about to send the files to an anonymous email, my phone buzzed. It was Maya. Hey, I said, trying to sound normal, though I could feel the tension in my chest. Jack, Maya's voice was softer than usual. Please don't do it. You know this isn't who you are. I closed my eyes, the words hitting me harder than I expected. I thought I had made up my mind. But now, I wasn't so sure. I can't let him get away with it, Maya, I said, my voice thick with emotion. He's ruined everything. He ruined me. I don't have a choice. You always have a choice, Jack, she replied. You can walk away. You can rise above this. You don't have to become what he's made you. I shook my head, clenching my fists. I'm sorry, Maya. I can't. Not until I know he's going to pay for what he did. There was silence on the other end of the line, and for a moment, I thought she might hang up. But then she spoke again, her voice calm, but filled with a quiet sadness. I won't stop you, Jack, but just remember this revenge doesn't make you strong. It makes you weak. It makes you them. Her words lingered in the air, and I realized, for the first time, how much I was about to lose. Maya had always been my anchor, the one person who kept me grounded. But now, even her support couldn't sway me. I had made my decision. I hung up the phone and stared at the screen, The moment of truth had arrived. I could press send. I could bring David down. I could have my revenge. But at what cost? The decision weighed on me as I sat there, staring at the screen. It was like I could see two paths before me, one filled with anger and destruction, the other with uncertainty, but the possibility of healing. I wasn't ready to walk away. Not yet. Clicked send. I spent the entire week poring over the documents I'd gathered. Every email, every transaction, every shred of evidence, it was all right there, staring back at me. David's dirty dealings were worse than I could have imagined. Kickbacks, fraudulent contracts, illegal business transactions that had been carefully hidden for years. The man I had admired, the man I had trusted as my boss, was nothing but a well-dressed criminal. I leaned back in my chair, feeling a rush of power surge through me. I had him. I could take everything from him, his career, his reputation, his life. I could expose him for the fraud he was. It felt good, damn good. But at the same time, it felt wrong. As I scrolled through the evidence one more time, I felt a pang of guilt. What would happen to his family? His colleagues? Would they be ruined just because of one man's greed? I had my reasons, I knew that. It destroyed me, and Emily, she had chosen him. It was the reason I was broken, the reason I couldn't move on. But as the faces of the people who would be hurt flashed in my mind, I began to wonder, was I any better than him? I had spent so much time hating David, so much time focusing on getting my revenge, that I hadn't stopped to think about the cost. It wasn't just David who would fall, which was everyone around him too. People who didn't deserve it. People who were innocent. I stared at the send button. My finger hovered above it, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it. One click, and it would all be over. I would have my justice, and I would make them both pay. But just as I was about to make my move, my phone buzzed. I glanced down. Emily. I hesitated. She hadn't called me in days, and when she did, it was always to brush me off with some excuse. But tonight, something felt different. I picked up the phone, pressing it to my ear. Emily, Jack. I need to talk to you, she said, her voice shaky. My stomach tightened, and I felt the anger surge back. You want to talk? After everything you've done? I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. You've got a lot of nerve, Emily. Please, Jack, she pleaded, her voice cracking. I know what I did was wrong. I was selfish and I hurt you. But I never wanted to lose you. I felt my chest tighten. I had spent days hating her, feeling nothing but rage and betrayal. But hearing her voice like this, hearing the desperation in it, it was like I was hearing her for the first time again. You never wanted to lose me, I scoffed. Then why did you pick him? Why did you throw everything we had away for him? She was silent for a moment, and when she spoke again, her words were barely above a whisper. I don't know, Jack. I don't know. I was confused, and I made a terrible mistake. But she paused, and I could hear the tears in her voice. I love you. I've always loved you, and I've ruined everything. My heart twisted at her words, and for a moment I almost believed her. Almost. You think you can just come back from this? I asked, my voice quieter now, almost a whisper. You think I can just forget everything you did? Everything you chose over me? I didn't choose him, Jack. I chose stability, security, things I thought I needed, but it wasn't love. I realize that now. I realize what I've lost. Her words hit harder than anything she had said before, but the anger still burned inside me. You don't get it, Emily. You took everything from me. I gave you everything, my trust, my love, my future, and you threw it all away for him. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, she said, her voice barely audible, but I'm asking for it anyway. I'm asking for a chance to fix this. I'm sorry, Jack. I'm so sorry. I swallowed hard, the pain threatening to overwhelm me. Could hear it in her voice. She was sorry, but was it too late? You don't get to come back from this, Emily, I said, my voice breaking. You can't just undo what you did. I know, she whispered. I know I can't. But please, Jack, don't let this be the end of us. Don't let it be the end of everything we had. I clenched my fists, fighting the emotions swirling inside me. I was so angry, so hurt, but I was also confused. My heart ached for her, for what we once had. But the bitterness inside me, the betrayal, made it impossible to just forgive her. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I don't know if I even want to." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, softly, she said, "I understand. But please don't do anything you'll regret. Don't destroy yourself over this, Jack. Please." I hung up the phone without saying anything more. My head was spinning, my heart a mess of emotions. Part of me wanted to scream, to yell at her, to make her understand how deeply she had hurt me. But another part of me, the part that still loved her, wanted to believe her. I stood up and walked over to the window, staring out at the city below. The world seemed so distant, so cold. I could feel the weight of my decisions pressing down on me. What had I become? As the man who once loved her? Or the man who was willing to destroy everything to get back at them? I looked at my phone again. The email was still open. The files were still there, ready to be sent. But as I stared at the screen, something inside me shifted. Emily's words, her desperation, it was all too much. I didn't know if I could go through with it. I didn't know if I could ruin her life like this, even after everything she had done. I closed the laptop, walked away from it all, and sat down on the couch. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to let go. I sat at my desk, my heart pounding as I watched the chaos unfold in real time. It felt surreal, watching everything I'd worked for, everything I'd planned, fall apart so quickly. I had done it. Had exposed David. The files, the emails, the proof of his shady dealings, they were all out there now. It wasn't just a career he was losing, it was his life. And I was the one who had made it happen. "Did you hear Thompson's gone? They fired him?" I heard the whispers all around me as I sat there, glued to my screen, watching the fallout from my actions. My stomach churned, but the satisfaction I'd expected never came. I should have been celebrating. I should have been basking in the victory. But all I felt was a growing emptiness. It was over. David was out. His name was already being dragged through the mud. His career was in ruins, and it was all because of me. The emails I'd leaked had spread like wildfire, and Google's HR department had no choice but to take action. The man I'd once admired, the one who had been my mentor, was now a pariah. But I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel justified. I felt ... hollow. "I thought you'd be celebrating," Maya said, her voice soft but laced with concern. She was standing at the edge of my cubicle, looking at me with those worried eyes. "I did what I had to do," I said, my voice distant. "I got what I wanted." She didn't reply immediately. She just stood there, watching me, waiting for me to realize what I was already feeling. "You don't look like you got what you wanted," she said quietly. I didn't respond. Couldn't. The words were stuck in my throat because she was right. I didn't feel anything. Not the satisfaction of victory. Not the peace of knowing I'd finally gotten back at David and Emily. All I felt was ... nothing. "Maya." Before I could finish, my phone buzzed. It was a text message from Emily. "Please, Jack. Let's talk. I need to see you." I stared at the screen for a moment, trying to fight the pull in my chest. The pain of seeing her name was still fresh, but now there was something else. Regret. I'd seen the desperation in her voice the other night, but was it too late? "I can't do this anymore," I muttered, more to myself than to Maya. "What are you talking about?" she asked, stepping closer. "I thought exposing David would give me peace. I thought it would make everything right. It hasn't. All I've done is ruin lives. Hers. ... mine." Maya didn't say anything for a long time. She just stood beside me, her hand on my shoulder. Then she finally spoke. "You wanted justice, Jack, but justice doesn't come from revenge. It comes from letting go." I shook my head, the words weighing on me like 1,000 pounds. "I don't know how to let go." "Well, maybe it's time to start," she said softly. I let out a deep breath, my fingers tightening around my phone as I stared at the screen. I wasn't sure what to do. Part of me wanted to call Emily, to hear her voice again, but another part of me knew I couldn't go back. I had already made my choice. I had already destroyed everything. I clicked the message, typing back a simple response. "It's too late, Emily." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was an incoming call. "Emily." I didn't answer. And as I stared at the screen, the sinking feeling in my chest grew deeper. I had wanted to hurt them. and wanted to make them feel the same pain I had felt. But now that it was done, I didn't feel any better. I felt worse. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my face with both hands. I had spent so much time thinking about revenge, about getting even, that I hadn't stopped to think about what would happen afterward. The consequences of my actions were real, and I was the one left to face them. David's life was destroyed. Emily's life was falling apart too. And mine? I wasn't sure what was left of it. I had hurt everyone. I had ruined the one thing that I had once cherished most to me. Maya stayed with me for a while, not saying much. She knew there was nothing to say. I had already made my choice, and now I had to live with it. "I'm sorry," I whispered, though I wasn't sure who I was apologizing to anymore. "You don't have to say that to me," Maya replied. "You did what you thought was right. Sometimes what feels right in the moment doesn't always bring the peace you're looking for." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words pressing down on me. She was right. What I had done wasn't going to fix anything. It wasn't going to bring me peace. It was just going to make everything worse. "Do you think it's too late to fix things with her?" I asked quietly, my gaze on the phone still resting in my hand. Maya's answer was slow and careful. "I think, Jack, you have to decide if you want to fix it with yourself first." I swallowed hard. I had done so much damage. I had torn apart everything in my path, and now there was nothing left but the wreckage. "Maybe you're right," I whispered. "Maybe I need to start with me." The silence that followed felt heavy, but it was different now. It wasn't the silence of regret, it was the silence of realization. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't even know what the next step was, but I knew one thing for sure. Revenge hadn't brought me peace. And maybe, just maybe, I could still find a way to rebuild my life. I stood there, staring at the packed boxes in my apartment. Everything I had worked for, everything I had built, it was all being left behind. My job at Google, the city, the life I had carefully crafted over the past few years. It was all fading into the past. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel regret. I felt free. I had made the decision to leave, to start fresh. I had to. I couldn't keep living in the shadows of David's betrayal or Emily's lies. I couldn't keep clinging to the remnants of a life that was no longer mine. The weight of the past, of all the hurt, had been holding me down for so long. But now, as I packed the last few things into my car, I felt like I was finally starting to lift that weight off my shoulders. "You sure about this?" Maya's voice cut through my thoughts as she stood in the doorway. I turned to her, offering a small smile. "Yeah, it's time." She stepped into the room, her eyes scanning the mess of boxes and half-empty shelves. "I don't know if I'd have the guts to do what you're doing, Jack. This is a big move, not running away from anything," I said, my voice steady, moving towards something. "I just need ... to be somewhere else. Somewhere I can breathe." Maya nodded, her gaze softening. "I get it. You've been holding on to so much pain for too long. But you're not defined by what happened. Not by David, not by Emily, ... not by any of them. You're your own person. You always have been." I didn't know if I believed her completely, but hearing her say it made me feel something like hope. It had been a long time since I'd felt that. "Thanks, Maya," I said, walking over to her and giving her a hug. "I don't know what I'd do without you." She smiled, pulling away. "You'd figure it out, Jack. You always do." I chuckled, though it wasn't entirely true. I hadn't figured much out on my own for a while now, but I was starting to. I was starting to understand that my life wasn't about seeking revenge or holding on to the past. It was about finding peace that wasn't dependent on anyone but myself. As I drove out of the city, the skyline disappearing in the rearview mirror, I realized something. I wasn't running from my past anymore. I was just ... letting it go. The anger, the pain, the guilt, I wasn't going to let any of it control me. I had nothing left to prove, and everything left to discover. The new city I was heading to was far from my old life, but that's exactly what I needed. I didn't want to be reminded of everything I had lost. I wanted to build something new. I wanted to reclaim who I was before everything got complicated. I rented a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood, far from the hustle and bustle of Silicon Valley. It was a fresh start in every sense. I spent the next few weeks adjusting to my new life, getting to know the city, finding new routines, and slowly, bit by bit, unpacking the emotional baggage I had carried for so long. Every morning I went for a run, clearing my mind and focusing on the future. I spent evenings reading, rediscovering the passions I had put on hold for so long. I even started making new friends, meeting people who didn't know me as the guy who had been betrayed. To them, I was just ... Jack. But more than anything, I began to find myself again. I realized that I didn't need David's approval or Emily's love to define my worth. I didn't need anyone to tell me I was good enough. I was enough, just as I was. One afternoon, I was sitting in a cafe, sipping my coffee and writing in my journal when I got a text message. Jack, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm sorry. I've made mistakes, and I've hurt you. I want you to be happy. It was from Emily. I hadn't heard from her since I sent that text weeks ago. My stomach tightened, and I stared at the screen for a moment, unsure of how to respond. But then, I put my phone down. I didn't need her apology anymore. I didn't need her to fix what she broke. I had fixed myself. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I had let go of everything that had held me back. And for the first time in a long time, I felt ... free. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past lift completely. This was the moment I had been waiting for. It's the moment where I finally took control of my life. It's not by fighting against the past, but by walking away from it. And I knew then that I was ready for whatever came next, ready to start living again. As I closed my journal, I smiled to myself. My journey wasn't over, but it was finally beginning again. It's funny how life has a way of bringing you to the place you need to be. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I had left the city behind Google, the memories of Emily and David, everything that had once been my world. It was time for something new, something real. The small town I had chosen to start over in was quiet, peaceful, nothing like the chaos I had left behind. I found a modest apartment above a local bookstore. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I could hear the soft rustle of pages turning from below, and it comforted me. I didn't need luxury. I needed peace. The first few days were difficult. My mind kept drifting back to everything that had happened, the lies, the betrayal. I spent so many nights lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what went wrong, and wondering if I would ever find the strength to let go. But something shifted, slowly, without me even realizing it. I found myself smiling again, genuinely. Found myself laughing even. I had missed that feeling. I was sitting in a cafe one afternoon, sipping coffee, when my phone buzzed. I glanced down, and there it was, a message from Emily. Jack, I hope you're doing well. I've thought about you a lot lately. I just wanted to say again how sorry I am for everything. I know it's too late, but I hope you're finding peace. I stared at the message for a long time, the words sinking in. The woman I once loved, the woman who had shattered my heart, was still out there. She was still part of my past. But she wasn't part of my future. I didn't respond. Instead, I locked my phone and set it down on the table. I realized that I had already moved on. Not because of anything she had done, but because I had finally found something better myself. The decision to leave wasn't just about escaping the pain. It was about choosing something else. Choosing a life where I could rebuild without the weight of betrayal constantly hanging over me. Jack. A voice interrupted my thoughts, pulling me out of my reverie. I looked up and saw an older man standing at the counter of the cafe. He was the owner, a friendly guy named Bill, who had always made small talk whenever I stopped by. Got a minute? He asked, flashing a warm smile. I nodded, gesturing to the empty seat across from me. Sure, he sat down, looking at me with a knowing expression. You've been here a while now, huh? Quiet type, aren't you? I smiled. I guess you could say that. You're here for a fresh start, right? I paused, then nodded. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure things out. Bill gave me a look that said he knew exactly what I meant. No, son, sometimes we need to lose everything to find ourselves. He chuckled softly. I lost my wife a few years ago. It felt like the end of the world. But here I am, still kicking, running this place. I studied him for a moment, wondering what it was about this small town that made people so willing to open up. Maybe it was the calm, the simplicity of life here. But it felt good to hear someone else's story. To know that even when everything seemed lost, there was still a way forward. Yeah, I said finally, my voice steady. I guess it takes losing everything to realize what's really important. Bill leaned back in his chair, nodding slowly. "I think you're figuring it out." He was right. After our conversation, I walked through the small town, letting the crisp air clear my mind. I passed by a few old houses, a few familiar faces, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was running away. Wasn't running from the past anymore. I was finally moving toward something new. Felt good. A week later, I took a walk down to the local lake, a place that had become my favorite spot. The sun was setting, casting the water in shades of gold and orange. It was breathtaking. I stood there for a long time, just watching the water ripple, listening to the quiet, and for the first time, I felt at peace. Not just with the town or the lake, but with myself. I had spent so much time focusing on what I had lost, the betrayal, the pain, the anger. But standing there, I realized that what mattered most wasn't what I had lost, was what I had gained. I had gained control over my own life. I had gained the strength to forgive, not just Emily, but myself. As I stood at the edge of the water, thought about all that had brought me here, the heartbreak, the mistakes, the regrets. But instead of feeling weighed down by it, I felt lighter. I had learned that sometimes the hardest part isn't facing the past, it's letting go of it. I took a deep breath and smiled to myself. This was my new beginning. I wasn't defined by Emily's betrayal. I wasn't defined by David's lies. I was defined by the person I had become, and that was enough. I turned and walked back toward my new life, knowing that whatever came next, I was ready for it.